Welcome to the FeedForAll iTunes podcast creation tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll be going over how to create an iTunes podcast. The first step is to run the program, so find the shortcut to FeedForAll on your desktop and double-click on it. When you run the program, you'll see this splash screen. If you would like to purchase the software, left-click on the Buy Now button. If you've already purchased, please watch our FeedForAll registration tutorial. To continue to use the trial version, left-click on Continue. After you left-click on Continue, a prompt will come up and ask if you want to use the FeedForAll Feed Creation Wizard. For the purposes of this tutorial, left-click on Yes. In the first step of the Creation Wizard, left-click on Next. In the next step, the wizard will ask what type of feed you would like to create. There are currently 3 available options: Standard RSS feed, Standard Podcast, and iTunes Podcast. For the purposes of this tutorial, select iTunes Podcast, then click on Next. In the next step, the wizard will ask you for a feed title. Your feed title is the overall name of the feed that you would like displayed. Enter the title for your feed, and then left-click on Next. In the next step, the wizard will ask you for a feed description. Your feed description should be a short, concise description for the purpose or content of the feed itself, not the items, which we'll get to later. After entering the description for your feed, left-click on Next. In the next step, you'll need to give the feed a link. Most feed links reference your website. For example, in this tutorial, we'll use our website, www.feedforall.com. After entering the link to your website, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for an iTunes subtitle. This subtitle is used only by the iTunes Music Store and is used as the title of the podcast. The subtitle is limited to 255 characters and cannot contain HTML tags. After entering a subtitle for your podcast, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for an iTunes summary. The summary is used by the iTunes Music Store as the description of the podcast. The summary is limited to 4,000 characters and cannot contain HTML tags. After entering the summary for your iTunes podcast, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for the iTunes image. This field specifies the URL for your podcast's artwork. The image should be a square and at least 300 by 300 pixels in size. Currently, the iTunes Music Store only supports JPG and PNG image types, so be sure not to use any GIF or BMP files. After entering the link to your iTunes image, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for the iTunes category. Left-click in the white box and you should see the category selector come up. Select the relevant categories to your podcasts, then click on the blue checkmark in the upper left-hand corner. Click on Next to proceed. In the next step, the program will ask for the iTunes keywords. The keywords do not show up in the iTunes Music Store, but they are used by its search option. The total length of the keywords is limited to 255 characters, and they must be separated by commas. After entering the keywords relevant to your iTunes podcast, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for the iTunes author. The author field is used for the artist field in the iTunes Music Store. After entering your author's information, left-click on Continue. In the next step, the program will ask for the iTunes owner. The owner fields do not show up in the iTunes Music Store, but you are required to enter information here. Enter your name or the owner's name in the name field. Then, enter the email address for the owner in the email field. After you've filled out this information, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for the feed's copyright. The iTunes Music Store uses this field as the copyright for your podcast. It is strongly recommended that you enter information into this field. After entering in your copyright information, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for the feed language. Since iTunes operates worldwide, your feed is required to include the primary language used in your podcasts. Select your language from the drop-down list, and then left-click on Next. When you click on Next, you'll see the Item Introduction section. This is the section that we can use to create individual items for our iTunes podcast. So, left-click on Next to start the Item Creation Wizard. In the first step of the Item Creation Wizard, you'll need to enter a title for the item. In the space provided, enter a short title for the item. After entering the title, left-click on Next. In the second step, you'll need to enter a short description of the item in the space provided. After entering a short description, left-click on Next. In the third step, it will ask you for the item link. The items link should be a URL to a web page that contains the full version of the information that this item represents. After entering the link, left-click on Next. In the next step, you'll be asked for the item enclosure information. The item enclosure information is used to add audio and other file types to your podcast. In the first section, the URL, you'll need to give a link to an audio or other component of your podcast. This should be an audio or other component file, typically M4A, MP3, or other formats, that you have already uploaded to your website. When you upload that audio file to your website will assign that file a URL. In this example, I've uploaded a sample MP3 file to my website. You'll notice that after you enter the URL and then left-click in the type field, the type will automatically fill in for you. The length field shown here does not refer to the audio length of a file. It refers to the size of the file in bytes. If you don't know how to determine the length of a file, here's what you'll want to do. Locate the audio file on your hard drive. You may need to download the audio file to your hard drive to do this. Once you've located the file, right-click on it, and then left-click on Properties. In the properties of the file, you should see the size field. This is the number you'll need to enter into the length field. Once you've entered the length, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for the iTunes item subtitle. The subtitle is used by the iTunes Music Store as the title of the episode that this item contains. The subtitle is limited to 255 characters and cannot contain HTML tags. After entering your subtitle, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for the item summary. The item summary is used by the iTunes Music Store as the description of the episode that this item contains. The summary is limited to 4,000 characters and cannot contain HTML tags. After entering your summary, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for the item duration. The duration is displayed in the iTunes Music Store in the time fields. It should be formatted in 2-digit hour, colon, 2-digit minutes, colon, and 2-digit seconds. After entering the item's duration, left-click on Next. In the next step, the program will ask for the item's keywords. The keywords do not show up in the iTunes Music Store, but they are used by its search function. The total length of the keywords is limited to 255 characters, and they must be separated by commas. After entering your keywords, left-click on Next. In this step, the program will ask for the Feed iTunes author. The author field is used by the iTunes Music Store as the artist of the episode that this item contains. After entering your author, left-click on Next. On the final prompt of the configuration wizard, you can either click on Finish to complete the wizard, or you can left-click on Add Item to add a new item with the Item Creation wizard. After you left-click on Finish, the program will ask you if you would like to save the new feed. Left-click on Yes. A new prompt will come up, and it will ask you what you want to name the feed. This is the file name for the feed, and it is what will be referenced on your website. Enter a name for the feed, and then left-click on Save. This concludes the FeedForAll podcast creation tutorial. For more information and tutorials, please visit our website, www.feedforall.com.